Hospital port as pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order. Welcome to Hapanwo TV and welcome to this new video about the secrets of Diego Garcia. Now, it's been a while since I did a video actually, and I actually put up a post on my community page apologizing for the lack of activity on this channel. I don't know if you saw it, but the reason was I was simply too tired. I had a lot of extra work on, and as a result, when I got home from work, I was just too tired. I was planning to make this video actually on Wednesday, and I just didn't have the energy. I could have done it, but it wouldn't have been as good. So I thought I'll leave it. And I put up a notice, and someone put a comment saying they understood, because I do feel obliged to provide entertainment for you people, since you take the time to sub and watch and things like that. So today we're talking about Diego Garcia, and the reason I brought this up is it's been in the news quite a bit lately for a different reason to the main problem I have with it, or the main issue associated with it, because it's really very much like the Area 51 of these seas. It's a secret military base right in the middle of nowhere, but also at a very strategic point. It's in the Western Indian Ocean, not far from the Arabian Sea, which of course leads to the Red Sea and the Suez Canal. It's also within reach of the shipping lanes from the Cape of Good Hope to the Far East, which is generally the busiest now, because some of the new modern ships can't actually get through the Suez Canal. Well, some of them get stuck like that. That Evergreen ship that got stuck a couple of years ago and ruined the entire world economy. So some of them actually just go straight across the Indian Ocean and around the entire continent of Africa, it takes much longer. But that's the only way they can go. And of course, it's within, for example, bombing range of the Middle East. In fact, bombers from Diego Garcia actually saw action in the Middle East. And indeed, also ships and submarines were rearmed at Diego Garcia. We'll say a bit more about that in a minute. But I'll just go into a bit of how this came about. I'll just show you this piece of this document here. Right, I've got to just share screen. Hang on a sec. Before I share screen, I'll just have a quick look at my browser. Check all the tabs are shut. We don't want any of the embarrassing things I don't want people to know I'm looking at. blackwivesmatter.com, etc. And yep, I think we're safe. Now this came up. You may have seen this in the news. So I've accepted cookies. That means they're watching me. They are anyway. I don't care. Oral statement to Parliament by Foreign Secretary, that great anti-white brain donor David Lammy. Yes, here he is. Here's his smiling face. I'm a black man and I was descended from slaves, and I have to tell you every 5 minutes. I'm not going to bore you by reading out his speech. It's about as eloquent as you can get, and not really much more original. But he goes into the details of what's happening. I can summarize it far more simple. The only interesting bit he says here: British sovereignty of the Falkland Islands, Gibraltar, and sovereign base areas not up for negotiation. The situation is not comparable. Well, they're not comparable, but we'll see about that. But anyway, I can summarize what he said, and you can go and look it up for yourself and read through that bunch of drivel if you want. What's basically happening is Diego Garcia is an island. It's an island as I said, in the Indian Ocean. I'll show you where it is, actually. The easiest way to explain this is just to show you where it is. And you can see how remote it is, actually. Here we go. Share screen again. Right, this is the Indian Ocean. This is the map of the world. Nothing's happening. There we go. But anyway, you can see there's the map of the world. There's us. I'm here in the British Isles, Oxford, sort of in the south of Great Britain. This is what I mean when I say it's right here it's not the Western Indian Ocean, actually. It's the Central Indian Ocean. You have the Arabian Sea, the Gulf of Aden, Red Sea. The Suez Canal is about there. There's the Cape of Good Hope. A lot of shipping goes in this direction now, almost straight past Diego Garcia. Interestingly, Reunion Island is sort of not far from here. It's in this sort of area. There's the Seychelles, and there's lots of little islands in this sort of area. Where's Reunion? I don't need to look for it now, but Reunion is somewhere in this sort of area here. It's easier if I go to satellite view. Reunion's down here. There we go. There's Reunion. There's Mauritius and Reunion. These two islands are actually both these islands are quite important in these stories. But basically, I hope you're checking you can still see me. You should be able to. Yes, you should be able to hear me as well. I'll just double check that too. I get a bit paranoid over things like that. Okay, so this is the Indian Ocean, and this is a ridge. There's a ridge of of seamounts, undersea mountains here with islands on the top of them, and they stretch. They're in three basic groups. There's Lakshadweep, which is this group of islands here, just off the southwest coast of India. Then you have the Maldive Islands. Now, the Maldives came up in one of my free energy videos lately, if you remember. Which I won't go into now, but you can go to my free energy portal and find it from there. There's actually a link in the description box to my MH370 portal, and there's also links there to the free energy portal. I can't just keep filling everything with links, so you have to find them yourself, and you have to maybe find some of these things yourself. You go further south than the Maldives by about a couple of 100 miles, and you come to the British Indian Ocean Territory. Diego Garcia is this little bit here, this red bit, which I've encircled. I can switch that off now because I don't need it. That's Diego Garcia. It says British Indian Ocean Territory. That actually covers all these islands in this area here. As you can see, there's a whole load of them. One thing you'll notice about them, they're all kind of ring-shaped, these islands, and they're what's known as their coral atolls. That's why they're called that. They're coral atolls. And these are known as the Chagos Archipelago, or the Chagos Islands. Some used to be called the Oil Islands. And this group of islands here. Now, funny enough, all these islands are uninhabited, except for Diego Garcia. No one lives on Diego Garcia except no one actually lives there permanently. There are a number of mostly military personnel and civil service personnel from the US and UK who are assigned there on postings. So this is an uninhabited area. Technically, that makes the whole area uninhabited. So that just gives you a little bit of background there to what we're talking about today. That is basically it. Now, why is this? What's happening? Now, why is this so important? Well, Mr. Lamy what the speech he made was about, which I showed you the text of, is he announced in Parliament. It was actually just 2 days before Parliament was due. It's just 2 days after Parliament went into recess. Or was it 2 days after? I can't remember. Anyway, he did it specifically to avoid debates in Parliament. That's an important point. I'll come back to that. He's reversing a former UK government policy on the islands. Now, this goes back to a quite infamous period of history, actually. And it refers to the expulsion of the Chagosians. Because, as I said earlier, the islands, the Chagos Islands, which includes Diego Garcia, are uninhabited, but they weren't always. In fact, from the 18th century onwards, they had a population, people known as Ilois, it's French. It just means Ilois, just means people who live, just means islanders, Ilois. And they were known as the Ilois. They're now called the Chagosians or the Chagos Islands, mostly after what happened because as a sense of identity. But what happened was because the British Indian Ocean Territory, as it became during the independence process of Mauritius, in the 60s. That's a long, complicated story. It used to be Mauritius was in the French Empire, then it was in the British Empire, a bit like you know what, Grenada, the big UFO place, which I've talked about before. But it was the home to, and it's actually mostly freed slaves. So it was emancipated slaves from Africa. It's kind of a mixture of people. They're very much a Creole community there. That is mixed race and mixed language of various people from India and other places and Philippines and others. But basically, they were emancipated slaves following the abolition of slavery in the early 19th century and in the slavery was abolished in the early 19th century by white British people, I should add. They don't tell you that at school or university. Oh, it's actually possible to get a degree in history while denying that, you know. But over the previous couple of hundred years, there were slaves that were emancipated, or they were sold, or they were set freed, and they were sent to. And they were sent to Diego Garcia and the Chagos Islands, and this included also lepers. Some of them were lepers, people with leprosy. There was a leper colony there where they could live without infecting people. Obviously, as with Ben-Hur, if you've seen the film, it's often very cruel. They're isolated from the rest of the community because everyone's terrified of them. But they basically the modern, or the Chagos Islanders up until the 1960s, and indeed the expatriate ones today, the exiles, are descended from those people, people who were sent there in the early 18th century. What happened was, to cut a long story short, in the 1960s, the British Colonial Office entered into negotiations with the United States Department of Defense, because the US asked, or demanded, or cajoled Britain. At the moment, you must remember, in the Cold War, we were very much Britain's bit. We very much United States bitch. I know we were America's little servant, as is very often the case. People make jokes about the 51st state, the special relationship. The special relationship at the time very often meant subservient governments to NATO, and with the creation of NATO, where with the US being the dominant nation of NATO. And what happened was, in the 60s, there was talks to establish a military base in the Indian Ocean, and the Americans wanted a base as close to the center of the Indian Ocean as possible. And they realized there were these islands here. There's no way they could ever do this on the Maldives, which were independent. They couldn't do this in Lac Chagui, whatever they were called, because that was those Indian, and the Indians wouldn't allow it. But they had the British Indian Ocean Territory, the southernmost archipelago. Now, what you could say in that position is, okay, we'll build a base there for you, and we'll sequester a certain amount of land, and you can use that to build your base. But they said, no, we want no local people in the area. We want it to be 100% military area. So this is rather like what happened with Area 51, because as I've explained before, with Area 51, there were a number of people living in the area, mostly people who ran the lead mines. And when Area 51 was created, they were immediately, there was what they know as eminent domain orders to move them out, enter into forced sales. So they were basically forced to sell their land to the government for a discount price with no compensation, and they were kicked out. In fact, there's a family, they're called the Sheeans of Area 51. They're the last of the lead miners in the area, and they've been fighting a legal battle for the last 3 generations. So basically, to try and stay on Area 51, and they've succeeded so far, but it didn't work with the Chagos Islanders. What happened was, the UK government decided to depopulate the entire Chagos archipelago, and on the request of the US. Now, you may think this is crazy. I mean, why do you? It's not just Diego Garcia they wanted to be empty. They wanted the entire archipelago to be emptied. That's about 1,000 people. Just simply moved out using various methods. Now, some of them were tricked into doing it. What they did was that it's really despicable. Actually, they encouraged them, and some of it was through forced unemployment. They actually shut down a number of jobs and employers on the island to try and stop the people from having work. So they said, well, look, we'll offer you work in the Seychelles or Mauritius or somewhere else. Another method they used was they waited till they left the islands for a holiday, for example, to visit relatives in other islands. And then what they found was the islanders, when they wanted to board a ship or a plane to get home, they suddenly found their passport had been cancelled, and they were left stranded. But it got to the point where they literally were rounding people up. They were rounding people up and handcuffing them virtually and moving them out and shipping them off the islands. And it got to the point where they they were killing their pets because it was only the people who could be moved. So Bruce Greatbatch, governor of the Seychelles, ordered the dogs on Diego Garcia to be killed, and they had loads of dogs. There was 1,000 dogs, so that's as many dogs as there were people. They were basically drowned or gassed, and then the bodies were cremated. And the children were crying about it when they were taken away. There's actually, I don't know if it's actually on. I don't know if it's actually on YouTube. But John Pilger. Diego Garcia. There's a film, I think it's called, it's not Stolen Isles. What's it? Yeah, Stealing a Nation. Oh, it is here. Look, you can actually get it here. I'll just show you. I won't show it to you because I'll probably get a copyright strike. But there's a documentary. This is part 2. There's Stealing a Nation Part 2. Stealing a Nation: How the US stole at Diego Garcia Island, and there's there's videos here about people stealing a nation. This is one of the islanders there. They're currently living in various places around the world. Now, so I'm just going back to my notes. So what it says, the motive for removing these people from the islands, these people who lived there for like 7 or 8 generations, it wasn't living space. There was enough room for the base. They could have built the base and left with plenty of room for the population, for the resident population. But the government, the Americans said, no, we must have the entire archipelago, the whole British Indian Ocean territory, depopulated. The reason being, they weren't bothered about space. There was plenty of space. They didn't want a resident native population there causing trouble for them by protesting, things like that, or spying. I mean, this would have made espionage very easy because spies could easily infiltrate the local population, things like that. As it was, that's now become a bit redundant because Mauritius, who's going to take over the islands, is very much aligned to China. So, as they said on podcast of the Lotus Eaters, David Lammy's not a very good negotiator, is he? It's and also, of course. What's going to happen is that the base is still going to remain Anglo-American, and what's going to happen now, though, instead, is that our government is simply going to pay Mauritius rent. It's going to be quite a lot as well for the next 99 years. They've got a 99-year lease on the island, so in 99, it's always 99 years. Hong Kong, you see, became a British overseas territory under lease in 1898, which is why that lease expired in 1997, and Hong Kong was handed back to China. It's not because of any extra negotiation. It's simply the British lease expired. But anyway, every Chagossian was shipped off the islands to the Mauritius and Seychelles. Those who resisted were arrested and forced. They were tricked. Their dogs were killed. Now, I'm a big fan of the Lotus Eaters. I love Sargon. I love the other guys. But Josh was on the program about this, on the segment about this. Josh was defending this. He said that he didn't care about them. He didn't care about those people, and he said he's upset that the government are giving away the islands now. He may be right about the second point, but I think what was done to the Chagossian people was an absolute outrage. It's indefensible, and there were comments underneath. Which I joined in with a discussion explaining, people were very, very upset about it, or people were saying, look, hang on, what was done was an abomination. You can't justify what was done to those people, tricking them or forcing them off their island and killing their dogs, just so the Americans could have an entire territory free of any pesky settled people who might cause them trouble for their nice little base. Those 1,000 people were basically sacrificed. They're kicked out of their homes for the sake of the geopolitical order, and that is an abomination. And there's no Josh tried to justify it, and I think he's wrong, and I said so in the comments section. But then there's three main points to this issue that I want to bring up. There's 3 specific issues here. Now, the first I've already described. This is, but there is another one I want to talk about, and that is that the fact that even though I mean what I just said about this whole issue, but I hesitate to assert it, and I think this may be why Josh has taken the position he has, because I know that this position is correct and fair, what I've just said. Josh even may know this deep down. The reason I don't assert it is because the thing is, David Lammy, what he's done, and his government under Keir Starmer, what they've done is the right thing for the wrong reasons. And this all goes back to there was actually a court hearing a number of years ago, back in 2010, and then all through the 2010s, there were several court hearings, and eventually the International Court of Justice held a hearing to clarify the legal status of the Chagos Islands, and the motion was passed. A motion was passed, a resolution that the UK had to relinquish its sovereignty on this island, and they said that a process of decolonisation was necessary, and it was under obligation to bring an end to its administration in the Chagos archipelago with immediate effect. Now, the UK government under Cameron and later under what's his face, they blend into one, these damn prime ministers, don't they? There was Theresa May, and then there was that other woman, and there was Roland Rat, whatever his name is. Was it Joe Biden calls him Rashid Sunak? They refused. They just refused to obey this order. And of course, the United Nations Court of Justice is actually a advisory board. It's not an international court of justice under the United Nations General Assembly. It is advisory, and we are not obliged to go along with it. We're not obliged to obey it in every single way. But anyway, the final ruling in 2019 was that the UK had to cede colonial administration, and UK said, no, we're not going to do it. So just getting my notes together, ladies and gents, bear with me. So now what's happened, as soon as one of the first things Starmer did, and when he came to power and he appointed David Lammy as Foreign Secretary, was to reverse that policy. And to say, no, we are now going to obey the ICJ, and we are going to cede sovereignty. And that's what Lammy's speech was all about. But he's done the right thing for the wrong reasons, because I don't think David Lammy gives a toss about the Chagos Islanders. He doesn't care about their abuse at the hands of the UK or the American governments. I think the reason he's doing this, and this is because he wants to generate white guilt in the hearts of the British people. That's what this is all about. That's the only intention. This is the only reason the government are obeying the ICJ ruling. And it's for the same reason that you always hear now in schools, on TV, in films, in magazines, in newspapers, everywhere. In fact, we're going to go through an article about this in a minute. You hear about horrible tales of British colonial infamy. Whether they're real or just perceived, you keep hearing about them. Even if they're in the distant past, they are promoted vigorously everywhere in the media and in education. And David Lammy's a man who's grown up in this political culture, a culture that worships victimhood. Victimhood is the foundation of his identity. And even in a strange way, it's the foundation of his self-esteem. I mean, I don't know if you saw him at the UN Security Council a couple of weeks ago, where he was talking about Ukraine, and he was addressing the Russian delegate, and he came up with this completely irrelevant statement. He says, I stand here also as a black man whose ancestors were taken in chains from Africa at the barrel of the gun to be enslaved. Well, that's true, but what's also true is that black men and women were not just, and children were not just taken in chains from Africa at the barrel of the gun. They were mostly taken from Africa at the tip end of a spear leveled at them by their fellow Africans. And indeed, the internal African slave trade was a very lucrative thing. Robert Mugabe, a former president of Zimbabwe, his family made his fortune in that slave trade. This is why he and his line have become so powerful within Africa. What's more, I, as a white man, my ancestors have also been taken in chains from all kinds of places, mostly England, but also France, Spain, other places, to the Middle East or to India, or later on the United States and the Caribbean. I don't know if you ever read a book called White Cargo. I very much recommend it. So what Lamy is doing here, he's saying something that's very conventional, but it's false, which is only black people ever were slaves and only white people ever were slave traders and slave owners. Not true, not true. And he doesn't fool me. He's loving every moment of this. He needs that slice of cheesecake, just like Diane Abbott does. He can't live without that regular slice of cheesecake. How would he cope in a world in which he could not pretend that he was the great downtrodden? And it's dangerous because this woke, in fact, the whole of wokery, I'm not going to make this a woke rant, but the whole of wokery is about making my demography, that is white men, national and international scapegoats for everything bad that's happened in the world, everything bad that is happening, everything bad that will happen. That's a very, very dangerous situation because we know what happens in history when people who feel demographic hatred gain political power. We know what happens. We know how dark a place that society enters. I could give you an example from history, but you've just thought of one, haven't you? When you just thought of another. So this is why I know that the moment I express to my positive sentiment about this, about the rights of the population of the Chagos Islands to return there, the moment I express that sentiment, what will happen? Well, David Lammy PLC will just use it as one more stick to beat me with. That's all that will happen. So that's why I hesitate over this whole issue, which is why I'm in mixed feelings about the whole thing. What do you mean, how's everyone going, Ben? You're recording, it's not a live stream. I forgot for a moment. I thought I was doing a live stream, so I'm just going through my various things. So my various points here. Now, as I just explained, what's going to happen now is there's going to be a process, a very quick process, without parliamentary debate, and this actually is a concern of mine. This should be debated in Parliament, but it's going to be done without parliamentary debate, and there's going to be now more negotiations, and very soon the Chagos Islands will be handed over, and for thenceforth their sovereignty will be under the flag of Mauritius, not the UK. The British Indian Ocean Territory will be no more. Except the base itself will remain. It'll be, like I said, it'll be rather like it'll be like Hong Kong or various other places. It'll be a leasehold, not a freehold overseas territory, if that's the right term. So, which means that it's still the property of Mauritius, and the Brits and Americans are renting it for God knows how much a month for 99 years. That's when the tenancy is up, and then they'll have the option of renegotiating if you care about what happens that far in the future. God knows what the world will be like. I think by within 99 years, we'll either be in the post-Illuminati world, in which case we won't need it anyway, or we won't need any of these military bases, not on that scale anyway. Or we'll be in the New World Order, in which case we'll all be cyborgs. We'll either be dead or cyborgs. So it doesn't really matter. I think we don't have to wait 99 years for that. Now, this is going to be interesting because the reason, as I alluded to earlier, the reason the Americans were so keen to kick the native people off the islands in the 60s, a process that was completed by 1973, was that they were concerned about the security of the base in terms of intelligence, espionage, things like that. Well, the base is now on a territory that is in a country allied with China. Mauritius is a very, very keen ally of China. So what's going on? I mean, maybe this is what Anthony Sutton. This is why Anthony Sutton called his book National Suicide, Because it does appear that the US and the UK administrations are doing things that specifically undermine the welfare of our nation. If you think in terms of national security and sovereignty abroad on overseas territories, yeah, that's exactly what's happening. Now, as it happens, this undoes one of the reasons that David Lammy PLC have been stating for why they want to return the Chagos Islands or they say to return it to Mauritius. It's actually never been Mauritian territory. This all happened before the BIOT, the British Indian Ocean Territory, was created before Mauritius's independence. But the reason they want to hand it over to Mauritius is they say it's costing the UK £10 million a year to maintain. That's a lot of money. I mean, considering it's costing us. The reason it's costing us so much is because we got a big American base there. If that base wasn't there, it's possible the island could have a thriving economy, with the native people could have a productive life, and they'd support themselves. As I've said with the St. Helena Airport video, the good thing about the airport is it will reduce the need for foreign subsidy or colonial subsidies or overseas territory subsidies. But of course, you can't do that because there's no people there to earn any money. And they say it costs £10 million a year. How much rent are we going to have to pay to Mauritius every year? Probably more. It'll probably cost more. Probably Mauritius would charge us more to keep that base on their island than it would have been if we'd simply left them as our own islands. We could have left them as our own islands, allow the native population to live there, and just put fences up around the base like you do in most other bases, and just had. That would have been the cheapest option, and that I think is the solution. I'll come on to that at the end of the video. There's a lot of concern about this. I mean, the Americans, for example, this is the Americans. We should point out the Americans' take on this, and it's here. Britain agrees Chagos Island sovereignty deal with Mauritius. There we go. 2-minute read. In the early 1970s, Britain evicted almost 2,000 residents. Oh, they're saying 2,000. I heard it was 1,000. That's what it says on Wikipedia anyway. From Mauritius and the Seychelles to make way for an airbase on the largest island, Diego Garcia. Leased to the United States in 1966. Britain said on Thursday it would give up sovereignty of the Chagos Islands to Mauritius in a deal that would allow people displaced decades ago to return home, while London retains use of the UK-US military base on Diego Garcia. Is that a good CNN voice? I don't know. Britain said that operation of the Diego Garcia, a strategic military base jointly operated with the United States, was protected by the agreement, which also allows Mauritius to resettle the rest of the islands after its population was displaced. The government inherited a situation where long-term secure operation of the Diego Garcia military base, I can't do Lammy's voice, was under threat, with contested sovereignty and ongoing legal challenges, British Foreign Minister David Lammy said in a statement. I'll just do my CNN voice. Today's agreement secures this vital military base for the future. It will strengthen our role in safeguarding global security. I sound like Brian Dunning, don't I? I've made CNN sound like Brian Dunning in that silly UFO skeptic video that I reviewed. For the future, it will strengthen our role in safeguarding global security. They always say that. Why don't they be honest? Strengthen our role in safeguarding the global oil industry and shut down any possibility of democracy breaking out in the Middle East. Oh, sorry, I wasn't meant to read that. Give me the official script. Safeguarding global security and shut down any possibility of the Indian Ocean being used as a dangerous illegal migration route to the UK, as well as guaranteeing a long-term relationship with Mauritius. Oh, we'll go into the migration thing. That is rubbish. That is rubbish. The migration route doesn't go that way. Britain, which has controlled the region since 1814, detached the Chagos Islands in 1965 from Mauritius, a former colony that became independent 3 years later to create the British Indian Ocean Territory. In the early 1970s, evicted blah-de-blah-de-blah, you know all that bit. The World Court said in 2019 Britain should give up control of the islands and said they had wrongfully forced the population to leave in the 1970s to make way for the airbase. In a joint statement, Britain and Mauritius said that political agreement had the support and assistance of the United States and India. Where did India come into this? What have they got to do with it? Anyway, that's actually quite a factual basis. Not very what's the word? It's a not very emotive article. But anyway, let's have a look. Let's have a look at. Should we have a look at it? I'll read this article in a minute. But let's have a look at this place on the map. Okay, this is. You can see it on Google Earth, which means that you're not going to see anything too sensitive. Obviously, probably Chinese spy satellites take much closer pictures and probably more realistic pictures, because a lot of this is probably censored. There's probably a lot of things maybe you can't see on here, but there's loads of hopefully you can see that. Yeah, there's loads of this island. You can see here it's an atoll. It's this sort of like loop shape here with the bit in the middle, the lagoon in the middle, and the reason it's made of coral. This is how coral islands form. I mean, you think you think that you'd ask questions like, well, where did they get their water from? Fresh water. There is like an aquifer underneath which filters from seawater. But this starts here at the northwest, because the actual base only covers like about a third of the island. As I said, there'll be plenty of room for people to live elsewhere. Now here we have a nature reserve here, which is called Barton Point. We have this Biot Peat Park. This is called East Island 18 Plantation. I'll show you some. It looks nice from above, doesn't it? I'll show you some photos of it in a minute, because it looks like a very pleasant place actually. And there's this road here called the National Highway that goes through these lovely trees here. Barton Point Nature Reserve down this loop here. There's like nothing much here, but you can see, or as you can see, there's a ship there. That's a cargo ship, probably a naval auxiliary. This road just goes all the way around here. No one lives. No, there's no buildings as such. It's probably just used for access. And here's the first set of buildings here. This road looks it looks unpaved road. It looks like a couple of ruts. So it's not a major road. There's some buildings here. You can't see what they are. Carry on down here. There's some bare spot. There's some bare patches here, maybe to do with chemicals. Maybe it's chemicals or radiation. My imagination's running away with me. But this is actually the kind of place where, you could do secret experiments. And I'll come on to that, actually. I'll come on to that because it's the perfect place for doing secret stuff. I mean, probably I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the secret experiments and flights and things like that used to be that have been at Area 51, what made Area 51 famous, the flights of aircraft and, alien reproduction vehicles, have been shifted to other bases as a result of the loss of security at Area 51 caused by it's public attention. The fact that even I could go up there on a coach and visit a little pub and little restaurant with called the Little Alien. There's nothing like that at Diego Garcia. I mean, there's no way any tourist could ever get here. It's far too remote. But there goes there's a little bay here. Oh, by the way, I will show you some more photos of Diego Garcia soon. But those behind me, actually, those pictures behind me are Diego Garcia too. That's a stock image, which you'll see again in the article I'm going to show you in a minute. But doesn't it look a lovely place? I mean, could you just imagine? Right? I mean, again, if it wasn't for the fact that the government's just hoarding something and refusing to allow people in, what a great tourist industry this place could have. I mean, look at it. It's very similar to the Maldives, which does have a thriving tourist industry. Can you just imagine walking along that beach there? Oh, hang on. My hand keeps disappearing. There we are. That beach. That beach there. My hand keeps disappearing. Get a green screen, Ben. Just imagine walking along that beach in bare feet. The sun's shining down, the waves lapping, sipping Malibu from a coconut shell, and you see that you could get like a little hammock on that. You could get a hammock on that. On that leaning over palm tree there, you can lie in the hammock, and you go jet skiing in the lagoon. Apparently, there's lots of sharks in there, so it may not be possibly. You could put nets up for sharks and things like that, as long as they don't hurt the sharks, that kind of thing. But yeah, anyway. I want to go back I want to go back to this particular part of the island I showed you earlier. Now, this This here, we'll come on to. I mean, this ground space optical deep surveillance systems, space surveillance thing. I'll come on to in a minute. I personally think this looks like some kind of residential house. Maybe it's the administrator, maybe the civilian administrator, or it could be the commander, the commandant of the location. I don't know, but there's like a little. See, there's a garden fence there. The main road, if you can call it that, goes through there. Yeah, I tell you, if they ever open this place up, I'll go. I'll do a Panmo TV video from there. I'll go there if I could. Give us or send me the money in a donation, or buy 1,000 of my books. Because when people say, "Ben, can I send you a donation?" I don't take donations, but buy my books. That's the best thing to do. If you haven't already, buy my books. They're three. If you bought them all, then you can donate some money. these bad. I showed you these bare patches. That's to do with as I said, maybe. I mean, I was kind of joking there, maybe to do with radiation or chemicals. I don't know. God knows. This is out of sight, out of mind. I mean, anything could be done here, and no one would know. There's no regulation except those imposed by the BIOT, the British Indian Oceans Territory Government, which is basically the hosts of the American military. It widens a bit here. Look at those trees. That's lovely. It is a kind of nature reserve as well. And then you come around here, and then there we come to this. This is the bit. Now this is a bare patch. You've got this bare patch here down this little road here. You see there's a junction. And here we have some strange things. So we have this bare oblong patch, a couple of small buildings. They look like, I don't know what they are. They're very small. Only maybe this one is like about 10 feet across. So's that one. What do you have here? You have like a circle. Look at this circular formation here. What's this? What's this circular formation? You know what I'm going to say, don't you? Landing site for a flying saucer. I don't know if it is that. I don't know that for sure. But anyway, do bear in mind, like I said before, these are all things that are allowed to be published by the authorities because Google Earth will blur or even edit and warp things which it doesn't want people to see. There's these more. Now these look more like, maybe they are the same. I was going to say they look like turning circles for vehicles, but no, they're too regular for that. And also there's no 3-point turns. They're all U-turns. I'd say it looks like vehicles U-turning in the sand, but no, look. They're far too regular. There's a small one there. There's some, I don't know if that's significant there, but there you get these lines as well. These could be the remains of old buildings. I don't know. This could be these are just marks left over from old buildings. But there's a road that leads this bare patch here, which is, how big is it? Out the way, measure distance. It's 872 feet across. Yeah. And then the road goes around here. We're coming down to the southern end of the island now. And this is where we get to this interesting bit that I showed you. I'll show you again here, the ground-based electro-optical deep space surveillance. I'll say more about that in a minute, and I'll show you a better photo of it. In fact, I might have one now. Just one moment. Let's have a look. Because this is the Space Force is there. This is what's strange. Which is a new outfit. There was already a Space Force contingent on Diego Garcia at the base, and it makes you wonder what it's there for. Now here it is. Here's a better video. Here's a better view of it. This is a Space Force headquarters, and you have here several buildings. I think if you zoom in, you won't be able to see much more because it just reduces the quality. But there's like some buildings here. And there's this here. These look like observatories. These look like astronomical telescopes, don't they? You probably see them better if I zoom out. See, those look like astronomical telescopes. And there's something in the middle there. It's surrounded by a fence. So the fact that it's surrounded by a fence indicates that not everyone, even among the garrison there, are authorized to enter that position. I mean, you often think like at Area 51. A lot of people say, well, nothing's happening at Area 51 because, well, if there were aliens at Area 51, T.D. Barnes would know all about it. Or what's the guy, Annie Jacobson's witness I showed you on the Meadows video, on the old tech version of the Meadows video. I can't remember his name now. It's in the book by Annie Jacobson that I showed you. But anyway, you think, well, he would know about it, wouldn't he? Well, no, he will know what he needs to do his job. And some aspects of what goes on at Area 51 will be as he'll be as restricted from viewing and knowing about them as I am. Need to know, kind of compartmentalization. Was it stovepiping as a name they often use? Anyway, this is the overhead view of that. Here's the overhead view. You see it's got this entrance here. There's some car park there. This is actually a roof. It looks like an open space. It's actually a roof. You can see the shadows there. There's several facilities here. There's some vehicles. Ground-based electro-optical deep. Yeah, we'll look into more about the things here later on. But anyway, you come along here and there's this sort of spider's web network of roads leading to all kinds of places. And there's this here, which doesn't have a label on it. But you see, is that a helicopter? No, I don't think. No, it's not a helicopter. I thought it was a helicopter park there. It can't be. No, it can't be. That's just a car park. There's this white building here. Now you get these. Look, there's these. You have 6 what looks like upright structures in a row, and there's roads linking them. Just check you can see that. And there seems to be a number of them. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's a number. There's about a dozen of these. I'm not going to count them, with roads linking them. These are better quality roads, I would say. And there's these. See, there's like a little 6-pointed star around them. And there's some here. There's one, in the big one in the middle, and there's a circle around it. That could have been what we were seeing at the other bear's patch, the oblong bear patch, was maybe the remains of what we see here now. And there's this here. You see the shadow. You can see what it is by the shadow. I would say these are antenna arrays of various kinds, because they look like the antenna arrays I've seen at other locations. So, for example, the ones in Australia, which Ross Coulthart talked about in his book. Can't remember the name of them, but they're actually extremely low frequency antennas they use for communicating with submarines and sending signals long distance to other areas. But this, I think, is an antenna array. It's used for communications, and communications is a big part of what goes on at Diego Garcia. I'll explain more in a minute. Carrying around here, there's this little mini lagoon here, little sandy area. The island, we're going to the southern point here, then it narrows again. You come up here on this narrow bit, and the road seems to be better quality here. It looks like it's maybe got tarmac, maybe it's tarmacked here. You can't really tell for sure, but that's the road heading westwards from the antenna site, if that's what it is. And you have, what's this here? I have a little lake here. There's like a little mini long lake, and there's this other building here. There seems to be some large, what looks like a gantry tower, possibly used for. I say it looks like things firemen use for training. It's probably not that. I don't know what that is. There's some more of these little lakes here. Like I said, there's an abundant fresh water supply on the island because of the coral acts as an aquifer. Now you come to a more built-up area here. There's this building here. Again, these look to me like radio antennas, or maybe they seem to be arranged more haphazardly. But there's these marks around here. Square building there. I think these are they aircraft? No, they're not aircraft hangars. I don't know what they are. But there's these kind of like triangular shaped buildings, and there's these smaller ones in between, these oblong ones in between. But there's definitely, are they buildings? I think, yeah, because it's not so clear there. You can see a bit of shadow there. Yeah. And there's these, they're a bit spaced out here. I think these might actually be, could they be concave rather than convex? You can't really tell. So they're kind of like depressions in the ground. They remind me of skateboard parks, actually. We go up here, we come to these buildings here. More huts, more of these kind of strange triangular shaped structures. Don't know. Now, these, I think, are weapon storage areas. Look, you can see the shadow there. See the shadow. The shadows indicating this has an upright segment to it. These I'm beginning more and more to think are. You can see that they're not casting a shadow in this direction, which means they're probably either flat or they're depressions. But there's things are casting a shadow in this direction now. Although the shadows on this appear to be coming more from the sort of like southwest angle, whereas these other shadows are coming from the more the northwest, which indicates it could be these were taken at a different time of day. I don't know. This is photo composite. There's a wild area here, and there's what's this? Looks like mobile home park. You can't tell what that is. But there's something like a fence here. More of these strange buildings here, which look pretty much like these are like weapon storage areas. That's a weapon storage. Could it be a hangar? Maybe that's a. No, it can't be an aircraft hangar because there's no access to the runway. I'll show you the runway in a minute. Come over here. There's this. Again, that could be a power plant or something. These could be transformers. And then the road comes over to the western side of the atoll on the western coast here. You go up here, and then it really starts to open out. Don't know what that is. Is that a lake or looks like a pile of something? What's this? Very haphazard. Could be a rubbish dump. Don't know what that is. That's water. There's some water here. That could be something to do with the water recycling plant or water access, or water supply. And there's this big building here. Again, this looks like just piles of rubbish to me. You can't tell. You can't tell from this angle. What's that there? Just a bare patch there. A clearing, a little glade. And now we come on to, this is the main area here. This is, what's this say? Lubbock Ikanpuyu. I don't know what that means. But you have here, this is the main airfield. And you can see here, this is the runway, taxiway here, apron, and you can see some aircraft park there. In the titles, actually, I've shown you I've shown you this area with many more aircraft parked. These are fuel tanks, have aviation gas, aviation fuel. Over here we have some Quonset huts. This could be like an arsenal for weapon storage, I don't know. There's a warehouse there. What's this? Can't really tell. But anyway, you go along here and there's some more buildings here. More fuel gasometers there. That looks to me like solar power. They got solar power there. Oh, right. At least they're environmentally friendly. Now, here's a pier. There is a naval base here as well, which we'll show you a bit more of in a minute. There's a pier for ships to dock. Maybe the naval auxiliary I showed you earlier. That looks like, I don't know what that is. I was going to say helicopter pads, but they've got a H on them rather than this X. Maybe some of you have actually been ex-military and have served on bases like this may be able to tell me more about this. What is this? That I think. Oh, that looks like maybe something. Maybe is that an aircraft area? Because this may be where aircraft are kept. Because look, it has an access to the runway. You can actually get to the runway that area. More fuel tanks and more buildings, which are unidentified. Don't know what that is. Here's the naval base, and you can see here there's loads of ships here. There's that ship. That looks like a supply ship of some kind. I'll show you some more pictures of ships here. These look like they're not aircraft carriers. That's a landing support ship. It looks a bit like a mini aircraft carrier. It's actually a landing support ship. So is that. These are like amphibious landing ships. You can see these are designed to deploy helicopters and sort of jump jets. What's over here? It's more of this is, I think, more part of the maritime aspect of things. And there's a communications antenna there. More equipment. There's these big Quonset huts here. What's this? What are these? Are these possibly barracks? I don't know. There's definitely some barrack areas up here. I mean, I'll show you. It gets more sort of like the obvious. These are kind of barrack areas because you have it. This is a basketball court, so I imagine this area is used for accommodation and recreation. So these are personnel quarters, I'm guessing. There's a tennis court there, and there's a basketball court. There's maybe some indoor sports arena here. And a few of these things have labels actually. And this, I believe it or not, I believe is a golf course. I hope they watch the perimeter in case no one with a gun will get anywhere near that. So Trump can go there if he feels safe. Yeah, I think this is a golf course. Right. These are radomes, and there's some of them are scattered around here, indicating they need to be sort of like spaced out, possibly to avoid interference. And look here, you see, if you're the Brit Club. The Brit Club. See, this pictures of people. This is for the recreational area here. There's the Diego Garcia Yacht Club. There we are. And this is, of course, barrack. These are all barracks. These areas here, where the personnel live when they're on the base. And there's more radomes. And up here we have here. This is definitely, you see, a barrack area. We have here the Peacekeeper Inn. All right, that's a good name. It's a pub. And you can see, here we go. And you can pop in and have a meal and a bottle of pink gin or anything else you want there. And so that's that local watering hole. United Seaman Service Centre. You see, this is just like a pub, like bar area. And look, the baseball pitch. You've got to have one of those, don't you? This is Americans after all. And they even got one of these Area 51. The Navy Gateway. See, this is all just barracks. The Navy Gateway Inn and Suites Diego Garcia. There you go. And that's where you can, when you're off duty hours, you can like mess around there. And here at the top is Diego Garcia Officers Club. Where you have nice pizzas here. Well, they put on their white jackets and white gloves and things, yeah. So that's kind of a tour of the area. Interesting, isn't it? Yeah, that's interesting. I hope you found that interesting. But now, what's actually there? What this location, which its official name is the Naval Support Facility San Diego. Sorry, Naval Support Facility Diego Garcia, British Ministry of Defence facility leased to the U.S. Navy, and it's rather like Rendlesham Forest. If you've ever been to Rendlesham Forest, and you know about the legal status or the management status of those particular areas. RAF Bentwaters Woodbridge was originally RAF, Royal Air Force Base, leased to the United States Air Force for the Cold War purposes of the Cold War. That's why it was RAF, but it was the US Air Force who was stationed there, and they had not Colonel Conrad, I've forgotten his name, but he was basically the RAF liaison officer there. But yeah, there was Colonel Conrad. I'll just go back and just do a quick double check of the location, because I'm just looking at any vessels that might be stationed in the lagoon, because we saw one of them, didn't we? So just before I go on, I will actually go back quickly. And they all seem to be these sort of supply ships. It's possible you get warships and other things there, some small ships, some small boats. It's possible you get like warships and things there. It looks like there's an overlay here. So you do have like what looks like this ship has been photographed in 2 locations, and it's kind of like you get like a composite photo in here. But what's that there? That looks like a platform in the middle of the lagoon rather than a ship. And I showed you that one earlier. There's another one. All support ships, so nothing to write home about. But there's several. I'll give you a list of the units that are based here. But anyway, it's been there since 1971. And of course, as I've told you the story about how the population was forced off the island, not to make room for the base, but just to get them out of the way for the purposes of security. It's been used for the various things in Strategic Air Command, the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait, the hostage crisis in Iran in the late 70s, and the Diego Garcia B-1, B-2, and B-52 bombers attacked the Taliban and Al-Qaeda targets in Afghanistan. Yes, we've got to look after our clients by bombing them, don't we? After giving them all that money and arming them, we have to go then and blow them up. And now these are the based units there, and I won't go through them all. And this wouldn't interest you actually unless you're a military geek, which I'm not. But it will interest you a few things. The U.S. Navy has the Naval Computer and Telecommunications Station. This is the most interesting part of the story, because this is Naval Computer and Telecommunications Station, Far East, and Naval Military Unit headquarters in Japan. With this place, it's called the United States Indo-Pacific Command, and it's basically its purpose. Its mission. I've actually got the notes here. It says here to provide logistics support and to operational forces forward deployed to the Indian Ocean and Persian Gulf areas of responsibility in support of national policy objectives. That's the motto of it. But also that's also the mission statement of the NCTS Far East. That's the whole, but that motto is actually for the whole of the base. But its purpose is basically to provide. Where is it? Its purpose is to maintain the military warfighting electronic networks and communication systems necessary for conducting operations in the Indo-Pacific Command theater of operations. But I suspect it might include a covert intelligence role, because it would have the communication systems would also include possibly hardware that can be adapted to other roles. And again, we're going to mention Ashton Forbes in a minute. Definitely. We also got the Military Sealift Command. Now, that is these and the, what are they called? The Naval Mobile Construction Battalion. They're known as the Seabees. Their job is to go around the place building bases and things like that. The Military Sealift Command, Maritime Prepositioning Ship Squadron 2, Fleet and Industrial Supply Center. This is interesting. The Branch Health Clinic. Oh wow, that's a Naval Media Center. Mission Support Facility, Fleet Logistics Center, and NAVFAC, which stands for Naval Facilities Engineering Systems Command. It's headquartered in Washington, D.C., and it has various purposes for the maintaining. It looks like it's maintaining. It's maintaining facilities and things like that. Fleet Supply Industrial Center, and then here we are, the U.S. Space Force. So we have Space Force Command, Space Delta 2, which is tracks all human-made objects from low Earth orbit. That's very interesting. They have this logo, which I'll show you. That's their logo. Might as well stay on share screen. Space Delta 6, 20th Space Control Squadron. This again is a branch of the Space Force. This could be to do with, this is probably what all the antennas were all about. And it lists a few electronic, it lists a number of electronic warfare facilities here, which may explain that. And we have a 21st Space Operations Squadron. It's all getting very Star Wars, isn't it? very interesting. I'm not going to go through all these details, but British Indian Forces Indian Ocean Territories is just like it's just like the governing body. And then we have here United States Air Force, 11th Air Force Wing, and it talks about Air Mobility Command. So these are all the various. I won't go into all the details of these. As I said, it's sort of military anorak stuff. But yeah, that's a lot of interesting details about what might actually be on Diego Garcia. And what I've just shown you is just what's there overtly, but what's there covertly. All right, now it's time to go on to the good old big black cock and see what they have to say. All right, there's this article here called "What I Found on the Secretive Tropical Islands They Don't Want You to See." This is from the 29th of September, and there's a picture of Diego Garcia. This is by Alice Cuddy. Alice Cuddy. I'll do my BBC voice. I might not read all of this. Diego Garcia, a remote island in the Indian Ocean, is a paradise of lush vegetation, white sand beaches surrounded by crystal blue waters. But this is no tourist destination. It's strictly out of bounds to most civilians. The site of a highly secretive UK-US base shrouded for decades in rumour and mystery. The island is administered from London, the centre of a long-running... Again, we'll go through the territorial dispute stuff. The BBC gained unprecedented access to the island earlier this month. Right. It's the enemy, a private security officer jokes as I returned to my room one night on Diego Garcia. My name highlighted in yellow on a list he's holding. They call her an enemy. Oh, I don't think so. For months, the BBC had fought for access to the islands. And again, blah-de-blah. Historic court case, blah-de-blah. A few bit of an introduction. I've already been through this. There's a picture that you see there, a picture of the protesters, because these are the people who... Oh, right. This is... Oh, no, this is different. These are not the Chagos Islanders. What are these here? The BBC wanted access to Diego Garcia to cover an ongoing court case over the treatment of Sri Lankan Tamil migrants being held there. What's going on? What? Tamil migrants? I don't get that. Hang on a sec. What's going on here? Tamil migrants going on. There's no... Just a sec. Let me just go... I just want to go back to something. I want to show you something, all right? Are these people who've come from Tamil areas, that is southern India, Sri Lanka, in rubber dinghies, like the way they cross the English Channel? As you know, anyone trying to cross to the 20 miles of busy shipping lanes across the English Channel is taking their life into their hands, and it's very reckless. But you know what? It's actually 20 miles you can do. You can actually see the coast of France from Dover on a clear day. You can actually see right across the English Channel and see just in the distance the coastline of France. And that's where people come across from the refugee camp in Calais in huge numbers. Yet, have they been doing the same here? Have refugees from southern India been traveling to Diego Garcia in the same way? All right, let's just look at this logically, shall we, for a moment, right? I've just shown you this is Diego Garcia, right? I want to reiterate exactly where Diego Garcia is. Let's zoom out. Those of you who've been paying attention at the beginning will already know this. Right, Diego Garcia is here. It is about, I'd say, based on the scale, about 800 to 900 miles from India. 800 to 900 miles away. Now that is one hell of a rubber dinghy, isn't it? It's got to be a pretty big, seaworthy rubber dinghy, isn't it? It's obvious that these Tamil migrants, if that's what they are, were brought here by ship. They were brought to Diego Garcia by a big seagoing vessel, which means they were brought there deliberately. You can't travel that far in a rubber dinghy. Just try it. I've said this before. Remember when I went to the Isle of Man, I talked about the young chap who travelled to meet the love of his life on the Isle of Man during the lockdown on a jet ski from the coast of southern Galloway in Scotland. And I said that guy is reckless. I mean, if I was in the throes of passionate, youthful love, I would have done exactly the same thing. But I would have got myself a proper boat. So it's pretty obvious these refugees have been put there deliberately onto Diego Garcia for some reason. Anyway, let's go back to the article. I say I'm not going to read all of this. She describes here, as discussed previously, the United States agreed. All right. With permission finally granted to me to spend 5 days on the island, it came with stringent restrictions. Requests for minor changes to the permit were rejected. Blah de blah. Personnel from the security company G4S was flown to the territory to guard the BBC lawyers who'd flown out for the hearing. And there, look, a glimpse of the island, the southernmost of the Chagos archipelago from the plane window. Now, this is the equivalent of Jerry Freeman's picture from Area 51, isn't it? He takes that photo at Papoose Lake, the guy who sneaked into Area 51, the historian. Yeah, this is probably the first picture we've seen of Area 51, probably we've seen of Diego Garcia for a very, very long time. Release the sausages, yeah, I know. I keep tripping over my words. Approaching by plane, the coconut trees and thick foliage are visible across 44 square kilometres. Oh, bloody, they have to speak European, don't they? Kilometres, punctuated by white military structures. Bloody, then he goes along to more of the detail here. One island, one team, one mission. Here it talks about this is the ready to fight tonight while preparing for the fight tomorrow. That's the motto of this. And there's the Naval Support Facility, Diego Garcia. And there's the good old Union Jack, and there's the good old Stars and Stripes, and there's that. There is the British Indian Ocean Territory flag. There's a B-1 bomber and a ship. And there we go. And there's various pictures from there. As I made my way through airport security and beyond, UK and US influences jostle for predominance. There's a figure of Winston Churchill in the. I spot British police cars and a nightclub called the Brit Club. Oh, I showed you that earlier. Roads called Britannia Way and Churchill Road. We were driven in a bright yellow bus reminiscent of an American school bus, and cars drive on the right. The US dollar is the accepted currency, and electric sockets are American. Oh, I'd need my adapter if I went there. Archive image from 1981, US Naval Construction Battalion, known as the Seabees, at the swimming pool on Diego Garcia. All right, there we are. Funny enough, they always have their recreation. The golf course is something you'll always find at US military bases. They love their golf course. And here's you can get your little uniform now. US security assessment is classified. Biots acting, that's British Indian Overseas Territory. It's not possible for him to compel the US authorities to grant access to any part of the military facility. The territory has been costing the UK tens of millions of pounds. The bulk categorized under migrant costs. Oh, I see. I cannot. The Sri Lankan Tamils costs are increasing. The latest forecast, there will be 50 million per annum. Is it possible, ladies and gents, that these people, these Tamils, were moved onto the island specifically to make this point? Do you think they may be political footballs, essentially? All right. Okay, here we go. Let's continue. It talks about the various like recreation facilities here. There's that picture that's behind me. You can see it here. One of the cleanest seas in the world, I bet. Yeah. The island has startling natural beauty. The world's biggest terrestrial arthropod, the coconut crab. Ooh, that sounds scary. But military personnel warn of the dangers of sharks in the surrounding water. Yeah. This guy here is an archive from 1960, a Chagos Islander. This is one of the people who were moved off the island where they lived for generations. A church on the plantation site. Wild donkeys. You can go and read this yourself. I'm not going to read through it all. It's not that interesting. But there you can get this there's stamps you can get on postcards. It's like it looks to me like a tourist area without any tourists, apart from maybe they run it maybe they just set it up specifically for this Alice person to interview. It says here that's where the migrant camp is. Oh, we can check this out on the map, can't we? Where was it? See, it's so small I can hardly find it. Here we go. So the migrant camp is here. Why is this it here? So this, I showed you this earlier. Is this the migrant camp? Is this where they? Now it doesn't look like a migrant camp, does it? Looks too organised. Unless, like I said, they're not really migrants, and they're just people who've been moved in there for the purposes of basically leverage in the negotiations or the quest to strip the country of its territory. What's this here? Lubek Ikanpuyu. I don't even know what that means. Here we go. Claim this business. Diego Garcia. And there's the post. It's got a British postcode. Shall we? Should we call it Hapanwo TV on Diego Garcia? Should we claim the business, everybody? We could try. Shall we? Let's see what happens if I put claim this business. All right. Claim this business. How do I do that? All right. I'd probably get done for fraud if I try and do this, but it'd be quite funny. Manage now. What happens if I click manage now? Yeah, I'd probably get done for fraud. But it'll be amusing, wouldn't it? It'll be amusing. Anyway, back to the article. Can you see that? Just double check you can see it. And it's just talking about it's James Cleverly, who's nothing of the sort, the then Foreign Secretary. He's just been dropped from the cabinet, but from the shadow cabinet, I hear, which is good. And now, new Foreign Secretary David Lammy has criticised previous governments for having for years ignored the opinions of various UN bodies and said the UK's endeavour to, I'm doing my super BBC voice, to reach a settlement that protects the UK's interests as well as those of our partners. All right, here we have US Navy personnel carrying out maintenance work at Diego Garcia. Anything else worth reading here? There's a photo of US bombers here taken off in 2001, bound for Afghanistan. All set up, ready after the 9/11 attack happened. Yeah. Well, there's the BBC article. Whoops. Did I just mute myself? No, I didn't. I better just check I haven't muted myself. Audio. Yes, it's still working. Yes, it is. I've not muted myself. Okay, well, that's basically the BBC article done. What else is there we can talk about? Let's go back to my precious notes and see what they say. Right, yes. I will touch on this briefly. Some of you may remember, I've actually got let's have a look at Ashton. Ashton Forbes, here he is, his channel. I've just been watching this here, Malaysian Airlines Monday, Diego Garcia and fake satellite pings. It's too complicated to go into this in detail, but you may remember these videos. I'm sure you probably...
Try Airwick Active Fresh Auto Spray. Keeps household odours under control.
Whoops, I've shown you these videos. Here we go. There's no soundtrack on them anyway. This is taken from a satellite, I believe. Now, there's lots of rumours that these are faked. Lots of people are sure they're fake. Look at the time. There's like a time code or area code coordinates on the bottom there. You see that? Did you see the orb just fly straight down there? And look, there's one there. You're probably familiar with this. 2 orbs. And there's a third one. See how quickly they move, and they're surrounding the aircraft. Oh. The aircraft is a Boeing 777 airliner, like Malaysian Airlines. You can see this is someone filming a screen, basically, or doing a screen cap. There's another mouse. You see that says the mouse pointer, the cursor there. Now, a lot of people claim these are fakes for various reasons. I don't think they are. I'll cover that again in a minute. There we go. Oh, just vanished. Vanished into thin air. And see the person operating the camera on this satellite photo, on this satellite image. Don't know who it is. Some people say it's Commander Edward C. Lin. Is that it? Yeah. Some people say it's Commander Edward C. Lin. I do. If you want to know more, just where's the video? Go to my MH370 portal. Go to that. It's probably the best thing to do. And these are I did some Hapanwo TV videos about this. Where is it? Where is it? I don't know. Just go to the portal. I did MH370 live stream, Rethinking MH370 live stream, MH370 Vigil, and MH370 10 years live stream. So just go to these various videos here, and you can find out more. But I go into much more details about this whole situation there. and there's that's this one I did last year, in December last year, and then finally this one that I did in 2022. So check those out. Ashton's channel's full of things here. There's full of interesting things here. Right. Oh yeah. Right. And this is another video. This is a second
Belvita with 5 whole grains.
Right. This second video is connected to the first one. Now it matches exactly. It matches exactly the first one. You can see it's basically showing the same thing, but it's showing it from a drone, from a surveillance drone, and this is infrared. Just going to double check. Sorry, I'm just pausing because I'm going to double check I'm on screen share. I have to keep double checking I'm screen sharing. There we are. Because in case I get it wrong. He does the first orb. There's the second. Rushing in really quickly. So again, you just see it circling around the aircraft. They're just circling these three in an equilateral triangular formation. They're just circling the aircraft for some reason. And he's just zoomed away. He's to zoom back in. That's it. You see where the heat is? The heat is coming there, and the red bits of the heat coming from the aircraft's engines and from its cargo luggage hold, which indicates because the batteries, I explained. Oh, just vanished again. You see, just vanished, and the drone operator is like wondering what the hell happened there. I expect. Right, is this a slowed down version? That's a close up on one of the orbs. Let's watch. This is called the zap, where the thing just there's this flash of light or heat, and this thing just vanished. Look, do you see how they converge? They suddenly converge, these orbs, very quickly. They suddenly dive towards the aircraft as if they're going to crash into it, and then you get this zap effect there, and it's gone. Incredible. Now, some people claim this is fake. For the purposes of I mean, I do urge people to go and look at both sides of this story. As always, this is Mick West wrote this article here for the Skeptical Inquirer, called the MH370 teleport hoax, where he addresses the points made in the analysis of these videos, but in my view, he unsuccessfully debunks them. Because he claims to have debunked them. For example, he says that this is stock image from the 1990s. It's not. Ashton Forbes has, I think, proved that. If you actually go to Ashton Forbes' channel, as I said, I cannot go into all this in detail now. I go into it in detail in my videos about MH370, but please do check out Ashton's videos here. There's a huge amount of material, but you only need to watch a couple of these videos to get the point he makes. So he does a couple of summary videos, big interview preparation, best evidence outline, etc. here. MH370 investigation stream. What really happened? Evidence review. You only need to watch a couple of these sort of summary videos, I'd say, to get the whole picture. He covers like the free energy issue as well, a bit like Alien Scientist. How this connects to Diego Garcia is he believes that the plane was teleported. It was literally, he uses the term zap, which means that those orbs, when they were circling around the aircraft, they were doing something which resulted in the aircraft literally being dematerialized and reappearing somewhere else. And he believes it reappeared near Diego Garcia. The evidence he has for this is threefold. The first bit of evidence is that the aircraft, firstly, theoretical. Diego Garcia is the kind of place you could take a plane like that because literally because they kicked all the islanders off. There's nobody except U.S. military personnel for thousands of miles, and you could always lock the people not authorized up in their huts in the barracks buildings. So it's a perfect place to keep a seat if you wanted to abduct the passengers of a plane, these Chinese scientists working for Freescale Semiconductor, for example. That would be the perfect place to take them, to imprison them, interrogate them, etc. No one would know they were there. No one needs to know anything. Even the BBC journalist in the Diego Garcia article I just wrote, she was not allowed access to the entire base. She was only allowed out of her accommodation block at certain times. She was escorted everywhere by a security guard, and indeed, a security guard was even standing outside her bedroom in the guest quarters while she was there. So what you've just heard in me summarise on that BBC article doesn't tell you everything that's going on there. Second piece of evidence: there was a witness in the area of the Maldives who saw the plane fly over. Third piece of evidence: a piece of wreckage was found. It was actually an automatic fire extinguisher from the luggage hold of the aircraft was found floating in the sea, and it washed up in the Maldives. The fourth piece of evidence is one that I don't agree with, is that he believes that the flaperon, the reunion flaperon, came from MH370 and had been floating in the seas from the Maldives. I personally believe that was actually a piece of planted evidence. If you want more details, again, I'm not going to go into details now, but please do go to the main Hapanwo site and visit the MH370 portal. It's at the top of them. It's actually at the top here. So of the list of portals I have on the main Hapanwo site, there's some voice articles there you can read, and also some Hapanwo. There are some Hapanwo radio articles that I've actually posted as well. So including this one I did here especially for the 10th anniversary, packed with information. A lot of it, is based on what Ashton has discovered. So does that cover everything, ladies and gents? Well, there are a couple of other issues I've got to bring up, a couple of other points I've got to make. So I mean, this is pretty alarming stuff, because it's possible that Diego Garcia was involved. It certainly makes sense that it would be the place to manage something like the abduction of an entire airplane full of passengers, the transportation of aircraft using unusual technology, shall we say. Ashton explains exactly all about how this technology works and about things like that, about how it's connected to matter transference and things like that, and free energy. Diego Garcia would be the perfect place to firstly do anything secret, but also carry out things that are strange and potentially dangerous in terms of experimental technology. I'm surprised it hasn't been used to test nuclear weapons like the Marshall Islands were in the Pacific a few decades earlier. The Marshallese people actually have only just been allowed back home because the radiation levels have finally dropped to safe levels. But they still can't sell the fish they catch in the lagoon there. They can't sell those fish on the international market in the Marshall Islands. They can eat them and take the risk themselves, but they're not allowed to sell them. The regulators won't allow it because of the radiation from bombs that were exploded there like 70 years ago. Yeah, it's awful how governments treat people, people who are vulnerable and stuff like that. I don't think when it comes to MH370, free energy, the orbs flying around the aircraft and other such complexities, I think they lie behind a wall of secrecy and involve. It's not just a wall of secrecy, but it's the details and the actual intelligence needed to understand them, which is way beyond the meager comprehensive powers of David Lammy. I don't think he even knows anything about it. I mean, I'm going to say one more thing about David Lammy. I do hope that at some point someone more intelligent and more suitable is put in place to represent my country in the global community. Someone who hates this nation less and has a basic knowledge of geography. I mean, did you know that? I didn't mention this on the last video, but David Lammy once declared that he thinks that Gaza lies to the north of Israel, when it very obviously lies to the southwest. Oh, anyway, I mean, he very brazenly says in that article I read out or showed you at the beginning. I didn't read it out because it's too boring. But basically the transcript of his parliamentary speech, where he says the sovereignty of the Falkland Islands is not up for negotiations. However, do we take him seriously when he says that? Do we say, "Oh, David, you're such a strong, powerful tour de force, a moral and spiritual pillar in this global community. So yes, of course, that means the Falklands are safe. The Falklands and Gibraltar and these other places are safe. We know that." But no, David Lammy has shown himself to be a very unintelligent, weak, and very feeble and bitter, self-hating or hating white people and hating Britain, that I don't trust him when he says that. It's a bit like these, what was that word? The British government has no plans for any form of V-word passports. That's what they said a few months before they even actually suggested bringing them in. So when David Lammy says the sovereignty of the Falkland Islands and Gibraltar is not up for negotiation, he probably means that in a few months it will be. It's doublespeak. Anyway, this article came out in the Evening Standard here. Argentina wants full sovereignty of the Falklands after the UK gives up control of the Chagos Islands. The country's foreign minister promised concrete action to get sovereignty of the archipelago. So why is Argentina doing this? They're doing it because they can sense that weakness. David Lammy has declared to the entire world that he's a pushover, and we know that the RGs have been going on about the Falklands for ages and ages and ages about how it's theirs really and not Britain's. Now, I don't agree with that. I think the British sovereignty claim is the one that's... I'm not going to read all this, but this is certainly inspired. There's no doubt this has been inspired by what's happened in the Falklands, in the Chagos. Argentina has always made this claim against Britain, and indeed they invaded the islands in 1982 before they were ousted. Have always claimed that the Falkland Islands is their territory. In my view, unfairly and wrongly, but they've always claimed that, and they've never let the matter go. And I got a feeling that, well, the only thing that the only person who may let this matter go is Javier Milei, their new president, who I think he seems to be making indications that he's finally going to close this chapter in their rather sordid and rather futile history. What the Argentines themselves call Malvinitis, Malvinas being their name for the Falklands. They call it. It's a kind of a joke, an in-joke, how they're obsessed with the Falkland Islands. Javier Milei, I think, is the only hope for ending this. But as it is, the foreign minister they've got now has stated, well, we've seen how Britain has so easily given away this piece of territory. Let's redouble our efforts and put pressure on Lammy now, because he's obviously shown that he's willing to cave in and back off. Maybe this is our opportunity. And this is concerning because this could go as far as another armed invasion of the Falklands. And I mean, in 1982, we succeeded in liberating the islands from the Argentine occupation. But could we do that now? Not according to Brian Gerrish. Brian Gerrish, of course, of UK Column, who's a former Royal Navy officer. He's lamented at the state of our Navy. I mean, we have Britannia used to rule the waves, but now Britannia's ships are all in dry dock being fixed because they don't work, including those two big aircraft carriers, Prince of Wales and the Queen Elizabeth. I think one of them went on the deployment. One of them went on sea trials and had to go back to dry dock for repairs. The other one, I can't remember which one, went on a deployment which had to cut short and go back home for repairs. I've heard from somebody that only 7 ships of the Royal Navy's fleet are currently in working order for deployment, and they're all being sent to Israel, I'm sure. So if Argentina invaded now, the Argentines must know this, and I think it's only Milei now that will stop them. I think possibly Milei, now he's taken control of the government, may have enough influence to prevent this from happening. But as I said before, even presidents have limited power in government. Unless Milei puts a stop to it, there could be another invasion of the Falklands, and this time, is Keir Starmer going to do what Margaret Thatcher did and said, "You leave those islands alone, or we're going to come there and kick you out"? By the way, I'm not a big fan of Margaret Thatcher. Before anyone calls me like a raving Tory, I'm not. But I mean, you could argue, you could make a firm argument that the war in the invasion and the liberation of the invasion was actually a just war. You could say that was a just war. I mean, I don't go that far, because I know that there was ulterior motives behind Thatcher's what she did. It wasn't for the benefits of the Falkland Islanders. It wasn't for the benefits of British sovereignty. It had another purpose, and indeed, it was the same purpose by which the Galtieri regime and the junta in Argentina actually invaded the islands in the first place. If you want to know more, Right. I've got some. Here we go. I've got some things you might want to look at. Here we go. So this radio show is very informative. It's got an interview with our Miles, our good old Milesy, and indeed I believe I did a live stream about it, didn't I? Yes, I did 40th anniversary live stream. So you can watch these things. I won't put links in. You can find them. You can find the links. So I hope I made it clear. What I've made it clear here is that I'm not some kind of hand wringing, empire disloyalist or counter empire loyalist. I'm not. I'm not one of these people who falls into. I'm not one of these white males who falls into, you know, waves of guilt and self-loathing whenever anyone ever mentions the British Empire. I do not. I think the British Empire was a mixture of things. It did some good things, did some bad things. It actually was formed a lot by voluntary joining rather than by force. Some of the nations actually joined voluntarily, things like that. So I'm not one of these people who goes, "Oh, the British Empire! I feel so guilty. Oh, I hate my filthy white skin. I'm an oppressor. I'm privileged." No, I'm not. I'm not going to start talking like that. All right. Because I do believe that the British overseas territories we have are. I see no reason why they shouldn't remain British. I actually do not support the handover of the British Indian overseas territory to Mauritius. In theory, in principle, I think it should remain a British overseas territory. There should be a parliamentary debate on this. Nigel Farage has been talking about this. If I can just, I'm able to find it. Farage, Chagossians. Here we go. Chagos. See what he says about this. And here we go. I don't have to go into details on this, but you can find these. Here we go. Nigel Farage tears into David Lammy over the Chagos Islands. I think that the idea of Nigel Farage tearing, not physically and literally, of course, but tearing into David Lammy is quite amusing because, Nigel Farage tears into David Lammy for strategic disaster of Chagos Islands surrender. Yeah. He believes there should. I won't actually play this, but he believes there should be a parliamentary debate on this. It's really actually, and he says pandering to an obscure foreign court. Yeah, we're pandering to the United Nations. So I believe that the British Indian Ocean territory should be preserved. I think in principle and in what's the word? But I just got a warning message on there. What was that all about? Oh, my mic's still working. I don't know. Anyway, I think the British Indian Ocean territory should remain that British Indian Ocean territory. I believe it is as much our territory as it is the Falkland Islands and the Gibraltar. I don't believe that we should give these things up. At the same time, though, I abhor as an act of inhumane cruelty the exile of the native peoples of those islands, and I believe we should immediately allow them to repatriate. And I think we should pay them every penny of compensation they deserve for the vicious and despicable way that they were treated by past administrations in this country and by the United States. I don't feel guilty because of what was done. I refuse to feel white British guilt. I will not, but I think it was wrong. And every possible measure should be made to amend and repair and give reparations for what was done to those people, including allowing them to return to their homes, compensating them, and apologizing for the death of the dogs, and all kinds of things like that. All that should be done, but we should not give up that territory. And quite frankly, because of the situation of the global world order, I think we should tell the Americans to build their own base somewhere else. I think we should have that base for ourselves, for our own country as Britain, and we should use it for the defense of the realm and nothing else. We shouldn't use it to fly bombers over the Middle East. We shouldn't use it to capture airliners and hold hundreds of people in prison or even killing them because they happen to work for for a Chinese company or a Chinese office of an American company that's developing semiconductors. And for whatever other reason they did that. I mean, who knows what happens to those passengers where they are now? Are they still alive? Are they still in prison on the island? I mean, where are they? We don't know. So I'll just have a quick one last gander through my notes. I think I've covered everything. There should be a parliamentary debate, and the solution to this is simply to end the exile, as I've said. We should have a complete and utter investigation and moratorium on the truth embargo over free energy, along with the UFOs and things like that. Ashton doesn't believe in aliens, or he doesn't believe aliens are involved in this. I think he's wrong about that. I've covered that in my UFO disclosure videos. I'll be doing another one of those shortly, Ashley, maybe even tomorrow. And if anything else comes up about this, of course, I could even do a live stream about it. But I think I've covered everything I need to cover. Good to be back, guys. After it's only a week, but I feel I neglect the channel when I go away for that long. But there's only one Ben. Only one pair of hands, no pair of hands when they disappear. Get a green screen, Ben. Anyway, thank you all of you for watching Hapanwo TV. Hospital Porters, pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order.